And thanks again to Saratoga Springs Public Library for collaborating with all of us and everybody for spending your time here. We know everybody's has really busy days and it's late in the evening, so we really appreciate you being here. So my name's Lauren Lestramo Allen. I'm an assistant professor in the graduate studies at SUNY Empire State University, and I'm also the assistant director of our Center for Autism Advocacy, Research, Education, and Supports, or CARES, along with my colleague, Dr. Noor Syed. And I'll turn it over to Andrea Piazza to introduce ourselves.
Hello, everyone. I'm Andrea Piazza. I'm currently working at SUNY Empire, and I'm the assistant director in the Accessibility Resources Office. I also have experience in elementary ed up through junior high. So, I've worked on both sides, and I'm very happy to be here.
Thanks, Andrea. And we have some really fabulous panelists, and we will have them introduce themselves in just a moment. The way we're going to kind of structure this is that we'll give just a little bit of background information, and then we'll shift over to a panel so you can really hear those experiences from college alums and college students. And if you have any questions, we would absolutely welcome you to put those in the chat, and then we'll absolutely stop at the end of kind of each section for any questions. So you can either raise your hand and unmute, or you can add it to the chat. All right, so we just want to highlight, this is a safe space. We're going to be talking about, things that maybe could be challenging in college for neurodivergent individuals, things that may be challenging for you. And so we just want everybody to know that we value everybody's perspective, and we really appreciate everybody's, openness in these conversations. You'll hear we may be, using different, identity first, person first. I'll just be highlighting that I'll be using identity first language just to really be responsive to kind of the emerging consensus from the autistic community. So if you hear me say that, that's kind of the rationale there. And again, engage however you like. So if you want to have your camera on, feel free. If you want your camera off, if you want to just talk through the chat, through your, typing, feel free. We welcome it all. We're just glad you're here. So again, welcome to our Neurodivergent in College series. It's 4 parts. You were at the first session. We have different topics for the upcoming session. So today's kind of like our overview, our kickoff. And then in 2 weeks, we will cover advocacy, accommodations, and supports in college. June 4th, 2 weeks later, we'll be talking about academic success and what does that mean, and how can we approach it? What are some things that can be helpful? And then June 18th, 2 weeks later, our final session, we'll dive into just, everything else that I think gets overlooked a little bit when folks transition into higher education, but it's pretty essential, right? So thinking about health and social emotional well-being. Just like this event, totally free, but please register so, you're able to get the link and all that good stuff. Also, if you're local to the Saratoga Springs, New York area, we would welcome, and you'd be interested in joining our Teen Neurodiversity Club, we would love to have you. Again, there's the link. Kate, if you're able, would you be able to drop that registration link in the chat too? So Tuesday, May 28th, 4:30 to 5:30. And then I've put this, the direct link in the chat as well. There's a resource folder that we've kind of put together and that we'll keep adding to across the series. So if you want to be able to check out some of those resources, we'll add these slides after they're done, all those sorts of things. Please feel free to scan with your phone, or you can directly use the link that's in the chat that says check out our resource folder. I think everybody heard Kate mention about captioning. We just want to remind you that is possible to do through your Zoom call. If you have any questions on how to do that, just put it in the chat and somebody will be able to help you navigate that. All right, so first we're going to really kind of talk about the differences between high school and college, some things to consider, and then we will hear a lot more from Andrew, Ben, Chloe, and Eric. All right, Andrea.
All right. Okay, so this chart it works really well in that it lays out. On one side, we're looking at the responsibilities for students in high school, and on the other side, we're talking about how are those responsibilities in higher education different. So the first thing, high school is required and it's usually free. And then higher education, it's voluntary. You decide if it's something that um, you want to get involved in or you want to pursue, and it's usually not free. And high school students have their time structured by others. Your day is already scheduled for you. Your instructors and your teachers, tell you what you're doing from time to time. And then on the other hand, students in higher education, they need to organize and manage their time. High school students, parents and guardians can help with advocacy and communication. And for higher education, students are expected to advocate for themselves. Sometimes parents do provide a support, they're in the background, but majority of the initiating and the advocating for themselves, it needs to be coming from the student themselves. High school teachers, parents, and guardians remind students of the responsibilities, your homework, you have an exam coming up, when you have to submit some forms by the due date. Many different areas, teachers and parents or guardians are there behind students to remind them of their responsibilities. In higher education, it's a big shift where students have an increased ownership of responsibilities. There's not as nearly as much as the reminding and the checking in. It's really on the student to follow up. High school classes are usually small, around 20 students. In college classes, you can get anywhere from 20 to 100 students. It really varies. In high school, you're taking courses all year round. In college classes, there's, terms and semesters. Fall, September, typically the end of August through December, and then starts back up in January, and then ends in May. And then usually there's summer terms, and sometimes there's terms even between those. High school classes, student is going from their math class to their language class to PE. It's back to back with a couple of breaks. When students enter college, looking at time, it depends on what courses did they sign up? Are they synchronous? Are they going on a specific time, or are they working on their own, let's say in an online class? Students may not need to study outside of class sometimes, because you get enough repetition in attending classes. But in the college classes, students often need to dedicate 2 to 3 hours outside of their class time for each hour in class. Many classes are 3 credit hours, sometimes 4 credit hours. So then you're dedicating, 2 to 3 per credit hour for each course. Now we're talking, here we're looking at the high school teachers versus college professors. What is the difference with this? Your high school teachers will check homework, remind you, as I said earlier, about incomplete work. College professors may not check and certainly not remind you of work you haven't submitted. It's really on the student to make sure that they're submitting what is required by the due date. High school teachers may approach students to offer help if they notice that maybe a student didn't do as well on an exam or an assignment, maybe than they typically do. The teacher will reach out and initiate. I would think most of the time, at least some of the time. On the other hand, college professors, expect students to reach out, initiate, ask for help. And at times there may be what's called office hours, where a student can work with the instructor for a little bit of time one-on-one if they need extra support. High school teachers often remind students of what assignments and the due dates that are expected, during a quarter, during, a month. That doesn't happen necessarily at college. Your instructors may have what's called a syllabus, which it pretty much dictates what is going to be expected throughout the term, throughout the course, and how are students expected to meet certain goals. So really, that's going to be your guide. Okay. Differences between high school and college. For students in the K through 12 school, under IDEA, students are attending for free and appropriate public education. That's certainly something that happens. And then multidisciplinary team support. Oftentimes you may have certain maybe classroom teachers, maybe a special education teacher or a case manager, maybe a parent or a student advocate. K through 12 may have the IEPs, individualized educational plans, and every year to review and look at what the goals are. Have the goals been met? There are annual meetings to consider what progress has been made, and then looking forward to planning for the next year. And the last bullet mentions having a clear discussion of any specialized instruction, what accommodations is a student to have available to them, and any other related services that may be a part of a student's plan. So in higher education, under ADA in Section 504, really this is to protect individuals from discrimination, any individuals with a disability. And the goal of accommodating in higher education is looking at removing the barriers through reasonable accommodations, reasonable and appropriate. In higher education, this often requires contacting and disclosing to the Disability Services Office. That would be me. So in each college might have a different way of how they process or how they have students request the accommodations. However, every campus should have a disability office where students can go for more information and ask questions and then decide if you want to take another step forward.
Thanks so much, Andrea. Yeah, and I see just, again, some questions in the chat. We will absolutely get you all resources. If anybody needs the slides now, we can maybe, Kate, if you're able to upload that. I don't have access to upload a file to the chat, or somebody can just drop them in the resource folder as a PDF or something. That would be great. All right, we'll shift quickly over. I'm ready to get to the panel. I know everybody else is.
Okay.
So just some things to really think about. And again, I'd welcome all the experts who are on this call. So Eric, Andrew, Chloe, and Ben, please feel free to chime in also. So some things to consider. Why do you want to attend college? I think the answer to that's going to be really unique to everybody. What type of higher education program do I want to attend? We'll talk about some different types. Do I want to attend in person, online? Online could mean live, right? So my professor is leading a class and I'm there at a specific time on a specific day, or asynchronous, right? Where maybe my professor develops lectures and materials and then I engage with all that when I want to. Or do I want to have some kind of combination, right? Hybrid. Do I know what I want to study? Or have some, an idea about the area I want to study? Or like many of us, right? Do I want to just kind of start more generally and explore some of those areas of interest and see kind of what path I want to take? Do I want to live at home, or do I want to not live at home, or, plan to make that transition kind of within college? Do I want to live alone, or do I want to live with others? Do I want to attend a school with a support program? What supports are helpful to me? And then how will I pay for college? Am I using financial aid? Am I trying to, use funding from other sources? So these are some really important questions. We'll kind of talk through these, within the panel, within the ongoing sessions as well. Just to kind of highlight some different types of post-secondary education, 2-year community colleges, which lead often to an associate's degree, versus a 4-year college or university, which will typically lead to a bachelor's degree as well as graduate degrees, or a vocational, trade, or technical school. And so obviously tonight's conversation is really focused on 2- and 4-year colleges, but we do want everybody to just be aware that that vocational, trade, and technical school is another path that might make sense for some folks. So 2-year community colleges, just in terms of how utilize that approaches, 4 in 10 high school students start by attending community college and then move into a 4-year college or university. The tuition and the fees are often less. They often have smaller class sizes, and they are often not residential, meaning like you wouldn't live on campus, for example. Contrast that with a 4-year college or university. These are typically larger. Universities are typically larger than colleges. You have kind of that. They're bigger than community colleges, and then universities and colleges are a little bit different. You can attend a public school or a private school. Sometimes the private schools can be a little more expensive, but sometimes the private schools can be a little smaller. So again, there's just so many dimensions of choice involved in deciding about higher education, and there's many more than are listed here. Again, thinking about learning formats, a lot of it, and many people now, having had experiences during COVID, a lot of us probably have this knowledge, whereas we probably used to not. So I think just deciding how do I learn best? How do I feel, the most comfortable while I'm learning? And so, traditionally, right, everybody really went in person or they went face to face. We have a lot more options now, right? We can go online to where we're joining class when our teacher is teaching, or we can go online in the middle of the night or at another time and do our work and do our assignments and submit them and watch our lectures, right? Or we can do a combination. So in person or face-to-face, you just be attending classes in that space with others. The sensory variables are something I think just to really think about, especially with the growing class sizes. And in person or face-to-face may align to living outside the home or on campus in some cases, although not exclusively. If there's a university near your home. Online, you're going to attend classes online, but you will be doing it with other people at the same time. So like everybody's going to be on that Zoom call together, kind of like we are now. And then again, if it's asynchronous, you're going to be kind of going to, a folder, so to speak, on whatever, Brightspace, Canvas, D2L. There's a lot of kind of learning management systems. Think like your Google Classroom if you use that in schools, and you're going to get access to a recorded lecture, assignments, materials, all those sorts of things. We wanted to give a quick overview of the process, right? So you've made the decision, you've thought really hard about it, about what you want, your long-term goals, your values, you've engaged in conversation with, the people you trust, right? Friends, family, and you've identified, okay, I want to move forward with going to college. You can start by kind of identifying preferred schools, preferred programs. Then you can kind of explore admissions requirements, right? So going to their website, maybe talking to their admissions office, get a sense of, do they have certain GPA requirements? Do they have certain test score requirements? All those sorts of things. Then you can really kind of narrow down what might be a good fit for you and aim to meet those admissions requirements. Next, you might want to go visit. That's, I think, strongly recommended if you're, going to be, especially if you're going to be moving, to a place, living on site there, something like that. You conduct a virtual or an in-person visit, and just, I think, consider if you want to schedule time or make a plan to meet with disability services personnel at that university or college when you do that visit. Then you would apply. Then if you wanted to engage in access to a support type program on your campus or at your university or college, you could apply to that. And then once you're accepted, you would start exploring financial aid, completing that FAFSA. You would confirm your plans for housing, transportation, other supports, right? There's a lot more variables there, but that's just some things to get you started. You'd maybe engage in an orientation, and then you'd start your classes. All right. So with that, we are going to turn it over, go to the fun stuff. I'm going to let our panelists introduce themselves first. I'll turn it over to you, Chloe.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. My name is Chloe Marbell Davidson. My pronouns are she, her, hers, ella, which is the Spanish pronoun for her. I am currently a community service leader for the City of Irvine's Disability Services and a recent grad from UC Irvine. So, yes, I am based in Southern California, not towards LA, but think more Disneyland. And I have such a unique college journey, and I'm really happy to be here to share more about that. And this list right here is showing kind of my highlight experience in my undergrad in blue and things I've done within the last 2 years in orange. So super happy to be here and wonderful to talk with my panelists.
Thanks so much, Chloe. I'll turn it over to you, Andrew.
All right, hopefully everyone can hear me pretty good. And yeah, very happy to be here. I've been very much involved in the East Coast. Outside of my brand name, this is my freelance name. My main job, I'm with Focus Center for Autism as a teacher assistant. I'm also with Anderson Center as a ECHO member, and I'm also in their consulting team. And finally, I'm with CHOP as a research consultant. And I have done a lot of I've worked in various autism nonprofit, like autism places in Connecticut, including a public school. I have a associate's degree in disability specialist, and I'm currently studying for my bachelor's degree in psychology at Charter State College. Almost done by the end of this year, and I forgot an I've made a little typo, but I will know it and change it later on. But yeah, full classes left. I can do this. So I'm excited to be here.
You can totally do this. Thanks, Andrew. All right, I'll turn it over to you, Ben.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Ben Van Hook. I'm an autistic master's student pursuing a degree in public policy at George Mason University with an emphasis in education policy. I have extensive disability advocacy experience, having spoken at the United Nations, the Global ADHD Summit, and at several colleges around the United States, from Stanford University to Johns Hopkins University, about topics ranging from education reform, disability policy, employment transition, and intersectionality. I also do research work, as I'm currently a voting member of the American Psychological Association's Division 33, which is Autism and Intellectual Disabilities. And I've worked on several research projects involving the autistic community at UCLA Riverside, the University of Massachusetts, Boston, Rutgers University, and George Mason University.
Thanks so much, Ben. Eric, can we go to you next for a quick intro? Sorry, I don't have a slide for Eric, everybody.
Oh, okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Eric, and it's a pleasure to be here. I'm a college graduate from Manhattanville College, and I graduated in May 2021 with a Bachelor of Arts majoring in Global and International Studies and minoring in Philosophy and French. The internships I've worked in the past were as a sole intern in the American Museum of Natural History back in my senior year of high school. And I worked as a West Bronx Housing Neighborhood Resource Center intern. For my position as a sole intern in the American Museum of Natural History, I led tours, educated visitors of the museum on objects and exhibitions relating to the museum. And as a West Bronx Housing Neighborhood Resource Center intern, I learned about the different programs people use to gain housing, such as Housing Connect, SCREE, which stands for Senior Citizen Rent Increase Exemption, and DREE, Disability Increase Rent Exemption, which helps people who are seniors and people with disabilities gain housing easier by lowering the rent that they have to gain to get housing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so.
And I'm also hoping to work in nonprofit organizations and non-governmental organizations. I currently applied to two positions at the International Rescue Committee. One position is a refugee resettlement intern, and the other is a refugee caseworker intern. I hope to get one of those positions.
Thank you so much, Eric. We've loved learning about all of you. With that, I'm going to go ahead and shift us into our first question so everybody can learn a little more about your college experience and all the wealth of knowledge and tips that you probably have for all of us. So our first kind of question for everybody, tell us about your college journey. I'm going to start with Chloe.
So I have huge accomplishments in everything I've done with my undergrad and my degree. My entering college was very challenging for me because, starting off, I was told by by a psychiatrist I wasn't UC material, which is referring to the group of the competitive public school system within California, so UCLA, Berkeley, and my alma mater, UC Irvine. And I was originally rejected from all the schools I applied to, including UC Irvine. So I had to do an appeal, which are often an option for college applicants applying who want an extension or to have the committee reconsider their decision, mostly over the rejection. So I had to not only reapply to UC Irvine with an appeal, I had to also finish my senior year of high school. So it was a passion project while I was multitasking, developing skills in task management and time management. And it fortunately played in my favor, and that truly changed my life. And it led me to so many opportunities to have really rich connections with my professors that I call friends. Now, the friends I have today, who I get to celebrate with their universities and the fields that they're doing, and I get to do, research and have a wonderful job in a local government that provides social recreational services for people with disabilities in my area, in my county. So I am truly grateful that I did pursue an appeal.
Thanks so much, Chloe, and just thanks for your openness with that. And it highlights just the level of advocacy that's required at all layers of the higher education journey. So thanks for that. Ben, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I would be happy to share. My college journey actually began with me finding out my autism diagnosis. My parents previously hid my diagnosis from me, perhaps because they didn't think I was ready or old enough to understand what it meant. But it wasn't until my final year of high school when my college guidance counselor, of all people, told me, "Hey, Ben, we should probably look for schools with autism programs." In that moment, I had so many different questions. I was asking myself, like, what is autism? Is it dangerous? Should I be worried? How does it impact me? And I spent the whole summer before college reading up about autism and learning more about myself. The most important thing I discovered was that I wasn't alone and that there were many autistic people who have faced similar barriers and challenges as I had. I eventually chose to attend Mercyhurst University in Erie, Pennsylvania, and I was a part of their autism initiative from 2017 to 2021. My first few years in college were transition years, so naturally they were pretty difficult. There were many changes from high school to college. I had to manage my time a bit better and advocate for myself, hold myself accountable more often than I probably would have in high school. I also really struggled in my freshman and sophomore year because I found living away from home very difficult. I had to do so many more chores after 3 hours of classes and 7 hours of studying in the library each day. I also couldn't rely on home cooked meals and had to learn how to create my own schedules, make my own meals, and manage my time on my own. I struggled academically my first year, but those struggles and some of the barriers I encountered led to growth. I learned what was working and what wasn't, and sometimes I, for example, found myself committed to too many extracurricular activities. In my first semester, I was enrolled in 3 different clubs. I was enrolled in the trivia club, the soccer club, and skiing club. And in addition to that, I was also part of the school play. So my academics really took a hit because I was focused on so many other things. But then my sophomore and junior years rolled around, and I took my academics much more seriously and spent around 90% of my time in the library, studying with my girlfriend at the time. We were both psych majors, and we just excelled when we worked together, mentored each other, and quizzed each other on the content that we were learning. And through this dedication to academics, I made the dean's list with straight A's those 2 terms, but I struggle socially. That was a trade off. And I was spending so much time in the dimly lit library and was barely having any fun in school. It began to feel like a full time job. And there were times when I forgot to eat because I was studying too much. I ended up spending a lot of time in the library throughout my sophomore and junior years, and I ended up regretting it because by my senior year, or rather my junior year, second term, spring term, COVID-19 hit. And I'll never forget the Saturday when Riz Life came knocking on my door, telling me to pack whatever I could and leave ASAP. There was just so much dysregulation, confusion, and adjustment that had to be made as I was moving back into my parents' house mid semester in the middle of a pandemic. This meant that I couldn't attend classes because sometimes I had to eat dinner with my family. Sometimes I would be in the middle of a Zoom call for my class, and my parents would have the TV on really loud, or they might have me come and do chores when I was in a meeting. Speaking of Zoom, I also didn't know how to use Zoom for about 2 or 3 months and was just so overwhelmed learning a whole new platform. The format of my classes also shifted because I had some presentations for classes that I was supposed to give, but rather than presentations, the teacher ended up shifting the assignment to having us respond to our peers on discussion boards or writing essays. COVID also posed challenges as related to learning the material. I usually learn best when I'm inside a physical classroom because I can get on the spot feedback on different assignments. I can ask questions in the moment, and I can form a professional and personal relationship with some of my classmates. But remote learning made this very difficult, especially at first. And as soon as a class ended, the teacher ended the lecture, ended the meeting, ended the Zoom call, and there was no real opportunity to form that connection with my peers. So that was another really difficult aspect of learning through COVID. And as COVID got worse, so did anti Asian sentiment and hate crimes against Asian Americans. And I ended up making the decision to spend my senior year, first term, learning from home because I was afraid to go back to Pennsylvania as it was a Rust Belt state and I wasn't sure what the climate was. So a lot of my fears also revolved around racism, how I'd be treated as an autistic Asian American. So, but whilst COVID was difficult and while there was challenges, it also made me realize how much I truly missed out on in college. And as such, I really made an effort to find the balance I needed between my social and academic life in my second term because I did decide to go back for my final semester. I eventually found a group of 4 friends who I made throughout my sophomore and junior years, and we just began hanging out each weekend, driving into town, going to the beach. Sometimes we'd go out to dinner, and I was able to maintain a healthy work-life balance and just put in so much effort into creating a meaningful college experience for my final term.
Thanks so much, Ben. And we really so helpful to learn, kind of listen about your self-awareness journey, right? That happened as you were approaching college, and then kind of that social, the social aspects and the impact that COVID had on that is something that I think is really important because your usual social circles, right? They kind of shift in most cases. They're removed or they shift. And so thinking about that element is such a big piece of the decision making as well throughout that process. So thank you. And I'll go, Eric, I'll go to you next.
Uh, my college journey was very interesting, I would say. When I first entered college in 2017, the transition was definitely very different than from high school. I had to learn to be more independent and learn how to live on my own without my parents, and I needed to learn how to teach myself class material and seek out tutoring and other resources. And the transition from high school to college was definitely very different. But what I learned from my college journey is to keep moving forward and never giving up with the obstacles that I faced. For my first 2 years in college and the first half of my junior year, I lived on campus. But as soon as COVID hit, I had to go back home and take online classes. And the process to take online classes, it was stressful and I had a lot of anxiety, but I pushed through and I I just told myself that I have to keep moving forward. I I can't give up. I've set out to graduate college and that's what I'm going to do. As for taking online classes, I needed to learn how to use Zoom and how to access materials through online. It was definitely very different from in person back in Manhattanville College. And the environment back at home really made me think how to better adjust my study time and my free time compared to how I was living in college. And I had to write my senior thesis during my senior year of college. It was very challenging and but I managed to pull through by never giving up and pushing forward and also seeking resources and people that could help me, such as my professor, uh, my learning specialists, and I pushed through and I graduated college.
Thank you, Eric. Thanks so much for talking about and the resources and the supports that you highlight. We're going to talk a lot about those in the next session, but I think that's such an important piece again that you're identifying. You haven't encountered those before, and then in college you have this like new set of services and supports that could be helpful, but it's all about finding that right fit. So I appreciate you sharing that. And Andrew, we'll turn it over to you.
All right, and thank you. Hopefully no one minds me going back and forth. First, getting myself comfortable here, and also getting the charger just so it doesn't kind of snap on me. But my college path has been best way to describe it is kind of me building my self confidence on the way over. But it's actually been a full decade since I aged out of the school system. In Connecticut, it used to be 21. Now it's like 22 around here. I think very few states now do the age 21, and most states are now kind of 22. But I don't want to be mistaken, so do your research ahead of time. But anyway, the transition, it took me a while because people saw transition as being kind of scary. I mean, in terms of adulthood, I know it has that different context to figure it, make sure it's get the right context there. But just that, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and I was falling in the stereotype, and I'm gonna assume this will probably be mentioned in the next few sessions on like how some stereotypes can get in the way of selecting the kind of majors you want to be. Like I used to one I used to believe in was just people being really good in tech only. And here I am, I was looking at something disability specialist. And I was like, you know what? I was developing like I probably big obsession or special interest in working in human services in the community. I was like, maybe I might be a little crazy. It's kind of like a contradiction. I was doing it a while, I was getting more confident into a community college, and then I realized more and more people showed up, and that's when I realized that probably no one minds me mildly cursing that the stereotype was a bunch of crap. Literally was a bunch of crap. It's just there to be like a roadblock. So I was able to do that about 5 years. I'm kind of more for pacing myself. So I was able to get my associate's degree back in the end of 2018. And then I went for my bachelor's through technically my Xbox kind of referred it to me. It's a Charter Oak State College online school. So I used to be an in-person, I went to online, and that was kind of rough. And I will say that unless you have very strong executive functioning skills, or very determined like I am, 8 week courses, 8 week terms, like there's 2 terms in a semester, like where I'm at right now is the end of the spring term. Not fun. Not fun. A lot of squeezing in, and I'm actually reading one of my textbooks in advance, just so I know the summer is going to be a kind of pain in the butt. So that took me a while. Then luckily that wasn't too affected because the pandemic hit, and pandemic hit, so I was already in online space, so I was kind of already kind of used to the online format by then. And then I took time off. I took time off in and out. I was trying a full-time job in the past that didn't work out, ended up being kind of toxic for me. And then I realized I needed to kind of use more semesters to actually do it. And hopefully this will be mentioned topic free, and I will advocate this probably even in my mental space, is that I've been using like my brand, the me being a public speaker, I've been using funds to pay for the rest of my college. So that kind of got me back on track and now 4 more crosses. So been a lot of ups and downs. Oh, and I think I've mentioned psychology is my major one. I kind of wish I should have been in teaching, admittedly, but everyone's telling me that I'm fine in psychology. If you look at my professional background on my website, which will be listed near the end, I work at so many different experiences. So like, I don't want to say I'm all over the place. I'm kind of like I don't know if anyone here is good with gaming terminology or knows Final Fantasy. He's like, I'm kind of like a red mage of sorts. You'll see what I mean when you look at my professional history or my LinkedIn page, which I'm on. But that end out, and we'll see what comes up. And I'm definitely looking into certifications, so kind of thinking about taking a break after bachelor's and see whatever place ends up can help pay for master's. Since gotta pay myself good, and then being financially secure is kind of in my next goal after this. So yeah, so let's move on to the next one.
Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, and I love a lot of the points that all of you have made. But and Andrew, I know financial planning and making really great financial decisions is something you're really passionate about. That we're gonna keep talking more about throughout the webinar. So thinking about the funding and paying for college and student loans, if that's part of your journey, is something that I can say for myself. I wish I understood better before I got them. I think a lot of people probably feel that way. So that's a really great thing to learn more about. All right, I'm going to shift this over, and we have a lot of ground to still cover. So we're going to probably just have one person respond to each of these questions, if that's okay. But everybody else, if you want to throw your perspectives in the chat, I know everybody would love to hear from everybody on every question. So Chloe, we'd love to hear just how did you decide you wanted to pursue college, or why did you want to attend college?
That's a really great question. Let me step back a little bit because I didn't really explain like how I define it. I define myself as neurodivergent. I've been receiving special education services from my K through 12, and especially as a multi-ethnic Latina woman, I'm Mexican, Nicaraguan, and Irish. So often I'm the only Latina in these like special education spaces. So not only I have to advocate for myself with my disability, but my intersections as well. But what got me interested in college, I guess it was like I'm very happy to where I am, but I think what kind of like led me to this happiness was fear and comparison, which is not a great place to start. You shouldn't like compare yourself to others because I was comparing myself to my sister, who we both went to very competitive like private schools. She went to the private Catholic school in the area. I went to the private art school in my area. I went to Orange County School of the Arts. That's where Pedro Pascal got his high school degree. And she went to UCLA. And when I got rejected, I felt mortified, as well as hearing from my peers about their post-graduation plans. And I guess, I got really interested in college like after the time you're supposed to be, starting to develop your interests. Because my special education, my IEP plan didn't really suit me up for success, to be honest with you. It gave me the accommodations I needed. It gave me, my legal rights as a disabled student, but it did not give me the equity to really discover my interests and avenues to go to college or even my local community college. What else? Making sure. And the appeal process also gave me an opportunity to prove something to myself that, I'm not just, not using material. I'm something more because I had good grades. I love my teachers. I love the things I studied. I wasn't an AP student, but I truly loved my education. So that I think college was just something that I wanted to explore more that I didn't really have an opportunity to understand in my last year of like high school as a senior. And I'm really glad I took that chance.
Thanks so much, Chloe. Yeah, you shared so many things. I was adding all kind of chats as you were talking. But thanks for telling us about yourself. And I think that like social comparison piece, right? College is often the thing that we all know, right? It's like the path that everybody expects. So when you're kind of reclaiming that, like, why do I want this? Why does this make sense for me and align with my goals, right? It can be really empowering, but I think it's also really, really hard, right? To maybe go against the grain sometimes. I'm going to go next to Ben. What were the biggest differences that you noticed between high school and college? And really, what were the major things that helped you navigate those differences?
Yeah, so there were a few differences I noticed right off the bat. The first difference was that I had to become my own best self advocate, and as such, I needed to be vulnerable. I needed to put myself out there and let my professors know what I needed when I needed it. I learned really quickly that nobody was going to support me if they don't know, like I needed to be supported to begin with. And as such, I had to fill out an accommodation sheet every single semester on my own. And I also had to take the initiative and visit office hours or the tutoring center if I felt I needed it. I also had a very difficult time setting boundaries and saying no to things, which is how I ended up in 3 clubs and 1 school play my freshman year. After all, like in high school, I wasn't really a part of anything and nobody really wanted anything to do with me. So to be asked to join a few clubs was a huge honor to me at the school fairs. So that's how I got involved with these extracurriculars. But I learned how to navigate those barriers through continuing to attend those events, but only in moderation. I never took myself out of a club completely, but rather monitored my spoons in relation to my schoolwork. Another big difference was the amount of free time I had. Um, I had like so many more hours in the day because in high school, for me, I was studying back to back 7, 8 hours a day. Whereas in college, I maybe had 2 to 3 classes, which was a huge difference. And with all this free time, I didn't really know how to manage it. You've probably told your students many times, don't procrastinate, don't procrastinate, don't procrastinate. If they're anything like me, they heard it, they laughed it off, and they forgot about the assignment and spent the rest of the day playing Fortnite. This kept happening until 2 days before my final paper. So what happened was we were given like a midterm paper or a final paper at the beginning of the year. It was in the syllabus. We had to read it ourselves because they didn't really go over the syllabus the first day of class like I expected. And I didn't really know until they made an announcement like a week before that we had our final paper due. So it was 2 days, maybe 3 days before the paper was due, and I was just cramming in the library, trying to get it done, trying to read as much of the book as I could because I was already 150 pages behind in the reading, and I had to write a 10-page research paper. So one of the biggest challenges for me was knowing that there wasn't really going to be any reminders and that it was up to me to really look over the syllabus, making sure I got my assignments done on time, and just taking more responsibility and accountability for my work and making sure that I got everything I needed to get done, completed by the deadline or due date. And if I had any difficulties, if there was any confusion, or if there was anything I wasn't sure about, to just go to the teacher and let them know. So I think taking accountability, taking responsibility of my work was a huge difference from high school to college.
Thanks so much, Ben. Yeah, and I think you spoke about, the syllabus. Once you experience a syllabus, at least for me, right? I feel like a lot of people are like, why didn't we have these in high school? This would have actually been quite helpful, right? It lays out everything that's coming, when it's coming, what we need to read. But you haven't really practiced that skill of using it because you didn't have them in high school much of the time, right? So it's this totally novel thing. Thanks again, Ben. All right, I'm going to shift our last one person question, and then we're going to give advice from everybody. Over to you, Eric. Eric, you mentioned some of the resources and the supports that you found really helpful. Could you just tell us a little bit more about how you decided, which supports to use and why they were helpful for you?
I decided which supports to use based on the material that I was taking during class. For example, I would schedule a tutoring session to help improve my French when I was having trouble with topics such as the subjunctive clause and verbs and adverbs in French. Yeah, and I would also use resources and ask from help from people such as my learning specialists when I was writing a paper to make sure if there needed any corrections to be done. And I decided how important that was based on the topic I was writing about.
Thanks so much, Eric. Really appreciate that. And yeah, like we said, next session is going to be such a deeper dive into supports and those sorts of things. So thanks for really that excellent segue. As we wrap up the panel, we're going to let everybody just share one quick piece of advice, or everybody feel free to frame it as like, hey, I wish I would have known this, to leave the audience with. And then we'll wrap up the session, preview next session, give you a survey. So don't hop off at the end of the panel, everybody. All right, I'm going to start with Ben this time.
Yeah, so one of the biggest pieces of advice I can give is to build up a support network. And this can include different peers, different classmates, different family members, and even like professors you might make throughout college, because that network can prove invaluable in the future when it comes to employment, when it comes to getting an internship. It also is really helpful because they can also share their experiences and kind of meet you at your level when you're discussing your fears, when you're discussing your anxieties about college. Some of before college began, like I went over some of my biggest fears with my parents. So some of the things I was worried about was, how am I going to find friends? How am I going to manage studying alongside doing chores? How am I going to manage like having a roommate? And they were able to give me different tips, like going to Res Life if I had a challenge or problem in my apartment. They also encouraged me to connect with my advisors and just create a good relationship with them. So I ended up getting to a point where I actually went to office hours, not to talk about any of my assignments, but rather to just talk about the field of psychology or the field of political science and learn more about the industry. And having these connections, having these professional and personal connections really helped when it came to recommendation letters. And it showed to employers that I was really motivated to go above and beyond and to just talk to like my professors about these very complex or abstract issues in my free time. So having these connections can really help like later down the line, but it can also really help like in the moment when you're struggling or when you might need some advice or guidance to get you through like a difficult situation. So building up your support network can be a really important first step when it comes to succeeding and thriving in college.
Such a great piece of advice, and thinking about your like supports for different things too, right? So like who supports me as a person, who supports me in my schoolwork, who supports me in my like health and mental health and wellness. So yeah, such a great point, Ben. And same question for you. I'm going to go to you, Andrew. One piece of advice, or I wish I would have known this.
Hmm. This could go anyway, so it's kind of a surprisingly hard question. I guess one thing I wish, well, I guess this is more of a regret. I kind of wish I had time to take more classes back when I was trying to do full time. I was trying to run a online business, and I was kind of putting off the classes, which which looking back was a very dumb idea. Was extremely dumb. At the same time, I wanted to pace myself, and because this was during the pandemic, so a lot going on, I was still kind of getting used to full time work at that point before it got kind of pretty yikes. So that kind of one thing I kind of wish I kind of did at least one or two more classes, and I had my bachelor's quick. But what can you do? At the very least, I'm at a point where I don't have to access one, so that works for me. And I guess for an actual for answering like the actual question, I guess the support that I wish I knew. Um, I wish I knew. It's hard to say because I don't really use a lot of supports. I wish other schools have like a 24/7 tutoring, like an online tutoring thing, because that's actually really handy. And at Charter Oak, where I'm at, if you want to turn in a paper for feedback, you could do that. You don't have to wait for a tutor. It used to be like that, but you have that choice. But you could just submit your paper and you get it back within 24/7. So that kind of wish that was in my other college setting. So hopefully that works. Hopefully that works as like a thing I wish this other colleges can do.
Thanks so much, Andrew. That's great. Yeah, no, I feel like a lot of universities are shifting again. Like COVID opened us up to this like virtual world that has kind of stuck where it works, right? And so, yeah, such a great point. And then, Chloe, I'll go to you next.
Oh, I was about to write my my answer, so I'm glad I get to speak about it. I'll be really quick. Not only don't compare yourself, every college journey is so different. There's so many different universities, there's so many different majors, there's so many different students, there's so many different faculty. A lot of things could go so many ways, and you're still going to reach that ideal goal that you want. For me, like UCI is not known for a special education school or archives, but I now have experience in both, at the half end of my undergrad and in my recent grad. So I'm happy where my life is going. And don't be confined to what your university provides you. Create those avenues with your network that Ben mentioned. Make those wonderful connections. Be honest with yourself. Be true to yourself. And honestly, I have about my neurodivergence in the last couple of years, and I've been so happy with the connections I made and the avenues and the future that I'm going into. So just be your amazing self when you go into college. Keep doing it.
I love that. Yeah. Find your people, find your community. Yeah. Because that I think helps you, right? Like feel confident in my journey might look different than other people's, but my journey's mine. I love that, Chloe. Thank you. All right, Eric, and I'll let you close us out on your advice or something that you wish you would have known earlier.
My advice that I would give is to use all of the resources in college, such as the Academic Resource Center, tutoring, your learning specialists, and also counseling and wellness center. And don't be afraid to put yourself out there in college. Join any club you want. Everyone is there is new and they're just trying to adjust to college, just like yourself. And I'm pretty sure most of the people are very nice and friendly.
I love that, Eric. Yeah, seeing the best. Yeah, everybody's learning. We're all kind of figuring it out as we go. I love that. All right, with that, panelists, thank you so much for all of your wisdom. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen to kind of close us out. Let's see. Hopefully everybody can see that. Just a reminder, thanks everybody for hanging on. I know we're running a few minutes over. Hopefully that works for everybody. If you have to go, we understand. We hope to see you next time. Our May 21st session, again, all the sessions happen every 2 weeks. The next one's talking about advocacy, accommodations, and supports in college, which we really started talking about tonight. Again, the registration links in the chat. We'll follow up in an email with all that good stuff too. Again, if you're in Saratoga, we'd love you to join us in person, May 28th for our Teen Neurodiversity Club. Sincere thanks to all of our panelists. I'll include Eric's information in the final version of this. Sorry for not doing that here. We would really, really love your feedback. So this is feedback about this session, but also just like what topics do you want more of? What kind of events, what webinars? We love building communities and connections, kind of like we've all been talking about. And so doing this is one way that we can all do this, and we can really commit to just learning about each other and learning about others' perspectives. So we would love to hear what you want. Please, hopefully this link works for you. I also put the link in the chat. It should be quick, but we would really appreciate you doing it. So feel free to whip out your phone and take a picture. And then we'll just leave you with this. This is our resource folder. Again, we put that link in the chat a few times. And here's just our contact information as well. We'll get the slides out to you. We'll get the recording out to you. Kate, Andrea, anybody want to add anything?
I'd like to quickly say if any of you have further questions about what an accessibility office does, I'm more than happy to find time to speak with you. So just send us an email. It can be a confidential conversation. Please reach out. I'd love to speak with you.
Thanks so much, Andrea. And the amazing Kate.
Yes, just thank you all. It was really great hearing from all of you. I really appreciate you all being here tonight, and to everybody who joined us, thanks so much.